Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book 91. We're talking to you about Ready to Love. We're dealing with Quinton and Lee. I think it gets to a point where sometimes you have too many options and you're playing for too long that you actually begin to, underestimate the other person who you have on the string. Or better yet, you actually maybe thought, I can keep this person on the side, and when I'm ready, I will deal with that particular person. I think that's what's happened with Quinton and Lee. I think we saw towards the end of the episode how Quinton was so surprised and so almost hurt the fact that Lee had decided to leave the process. Yes, she was going to leave the process because you were taking too long to decide, and maybe you thought you wanted to go all the way to process day, where you can say, okay, look, I've gone through the process, I now get to choose. And I'm actually kind of glad that, Lee didn't let it go all the way there, because in reality, he had been stringing her along the whole entire time. He had a stronger connection with Janelle and never really made an effort with Lee in the way that he did with Janelle. I think also the fact that they weren't compatible, him and Janelle, in terms of like kids, the future kind of stuff. They weren't actually that compatible, but he was very infatuated by Janelle over Lee. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the fact that, you had an opportunity to choose Lee, and you didn't. You chose Janelle. Whether you chose her at the end of the day or whether you chose her in your actions, you chose Janelle, and you didn't play the game correctly. It's funny how when Lee actually questioned him and said, hey, look, you know what, I'm going to challenge you because that day in the house, you didn't really have me in mind, right? You and he said, oh, I didn't plan it very, very well. In reality, you had your mind focused on Janelle. Like, for instance, when she came out and said about the fishing, hey, you immediately switched your attention from Lee straight to Janelle. Said, I'm coming inside, you were an excited little boy. And I don't mean that in any disrespect, but I meant that in terms of the analogy, the metaphor, the excited little boy going when his mum calls him. Now, I'm not saying that he's a little boy. I'm saying that it's the energy he was carrying. It's almost like the excitement of going to Janelle. And so, of course, if I'm Lee, I'm going to look at it like, this is one too many disrespects. I'm not going to have it. You know what I mean? I'm of worth. I'm of some, some value. So if you're not going to treat me right, I'm going to go elsewhere. So I'm going to discuss that a little bit more on this particular video. But first, before we do that, like, share, subscribe. As always, we're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. You guys have been killing it and helping us. I want to see more of that come through as well. So please do subscribe, like it, and share as well. And for those of you who are returnees, you already know what it is, baby. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. Stay hydrated because streets out there are hot. All right, back into what we're saying. Lee had witnessed several instances, such as the fishing situation, the date with, I think, who was it with? Janelle and Lee, and I think someone else, whatever. He had to sit down with them too, whatever. And the way he kind of, dealt with her kind of showed where his heart kind of lied. And we have to be very honest about it, Quinton, too, right? I know he felt some type of way, and more than likely, the way he felt some way about Lee exiting the show, because Lee was the better option. In terms of compatibility, Lee was the better option, but that's not where his heart was lying. That's not where his passion was lying. That's not where his lust was lying. That's not where his, vibe was lying. It was lying with Janelle, and there is nothing wrong with that. It's just that when you realize and you look back and Lee is left and you think to yourself, oh, I feel like I might have made a mistake. It's not even made a mistake. You were trying to play. You were trying to hold both of them in place to get to the end. And maybe you choose Lee at the end, maybe you won't, right? In reality, you are dangling her at the end of a string. And you didn't really want her. And that's okay, The dangling, probably not so much, but it's okay not to want somebody, all right? So it happens. We don't always like the people that we think we should. And it's something that happens as growth comes along. Now, what I would say is, I think Lee made a point about, when she was talking to Tommy, and Tommy was like, to Quinton. Quinton was like, you guys are the same. And she was like, I'm like sugar, she's like fire. You know what I mean? Like, again, she didn't like the comparison, which I do understand, because again, Janelle is labeled as a mean girl. You don't want to be labeled next to that, and you don't want to be compared to that because you're not a mean person. So I totally actually understand that. I'm not against it at all, and I do feel where she's coming from. I think her situation with Quinton and herself in the dating realms, I think on this episode was a climactic issue, right? So we got to the climax and we're like, okay, now we're going to build down to our crescendo. This now needs to come to an end. And I think Lee was taking back some power when she decided to go to Tommy and say, hey, Tommy, look, can I be honest with you? I'm not feeling this. This ain't it. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I'm done. You know, and that's fair. And I think the way that even my hands in the way that I do apologize. I just gotta hold it there, guys. Sorry, because it'd be too much. But I think also with this thing that was staying. Can you stay up? There we go. I think that camera might not be working too good. But anyway, listen. Yeah. So I think obviously with with Lee obviously exiting, it was a power move, right? Like to get the power back, to wrestle back some of that power because the choice was in Quinton's hands. And Quinton did not do effectively what he was supposed to do with that amount of power. And I think that's key too, because I think when you trust somebody to make a decision, and what actually Lee was trying to do with Quinton, I think she was hoping that he would see the light of day. But I think as it was coming later and later in the day, as she said, she didn't have no time now to make new connects. It's disappointing also to see that he still chose Janelle. After everything she's gone through, after everything that she's done, after everything she's displayed and you've witnessed, you still choose Janelle. Then really and truly, Lee isn't the person for you. Because Lee is not that person as Janelle is. Right? So if you like a Janelle, then yeah, I can see why she said it. We're like sweet sugar and fire. We're not mixing at all. We're not even similar. We come from two different spaces. And so, yes, I believe as well as a man, you can be multifaceted. You can like two different types of women. It's absolutely true. You can like two different types of women because that person has certain qualities. This person has those qualities. I think what he liked about Janelle is her assertiveness, is her aggression, is her forwardness, is her very openly staunch, I like you, and kind of vibe. And sometimes people like people that they're chasing them. I did feel a little bit like he was chasing Janelle in terms of how that she's older. She was liking Herbert at first, and Herbert was number one. And it felt like, Quinton not wanting to quit, and he's definitely a champion for sticking in there and trying to win. But I felt like, this age gap was one, and then the kids was two. It's like Janelle never in her mind really and truly was going to consider we're never going to consider Quinton. It was a game, more of a case for her to be chosen to stay on the show. And I'm not vexed at that because, again, that is what the show is. Unfortunately, that's the premise of the show nowadays. With Quinton and Janelle, I really feel like there must be a deeper look into it as to why you'd want to be someone older and somebody who can be disrespectful in their conduct. What is it that's pulling you into that situation, Quinton? What is it about Janelle's qualities that remind you or are familiar or safe to you? Almost as if that you can see right through her because you might want to have a cape on. You might have a cape on. Turn to the left. Turn the right cheek to the right. Face your cheek forward. Tell me something. You might just be having your cape on. But yeah, no, I think Quinton missed out on Lee. I think he will regret a little bit. Not necessarily regret forever, but regret a little bit that he didn't choose Lee and try to really develop a relationship with her, because even he admitted, at a point that, he could have done more to fester and further more the conversations and the connection. Why didn't he do that? Because he was too heavily invested in Janelle. Something about Janelle's demeanor, her meanness, and then him seeing the meek side. I think he likes to see the good in people. I think he likes when a woman is supposedly meant to be a little bit, a bit mad, but you see the deeper, warm side of her. It's like, oh, I'm special because I managed to see a different side of you. It ain't it. Like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button.